GOP Senator Tom Cotton sits on the Armed Services Committee. He's one of the few that fully understands what's happening in this region. Senator, what should America's role be right now?
Well, Brian, first off, it's very welcome news for the Syrian people. As you said, they've suffered under the Assad dictatorship for more than 50 years. It's also humiliating news for our adversaries, Russia and Iran, which have been propping up Assad for over a decade. Russia has two major bases there in Syria that they've used to help support the Houthi rebels in Yemen that have been attacking our sailors in the Red Sea. But we also have to be guarded about the future as well. I don't think we should expect democracy is naturally going to flower in Syria. We have to protect our interests, as Israel does as well. That's why the United States and Israel carried out those airstrikes over the weekend to make sure, for instance, that ISIS remnants in eastern Syria weren't taking the advantage of this period to gain more land, or that those chemical weapons or other weapons depots you mentioned weren't falling into the wrong hands. So we want to work with our partners like Israel and Turkey in the region to try to help Syria have a stable and government that's going to have peaceful relations with its neighbors and with the United States. But I think we have to be clear-eyed. You know, Ronald Reagan used to say about Soviet Russia, trust but verify. I think in this situation, we need to distrust and verify anyone who might come to power in Syria.
So the president, just to paraphrase, came out, President-elect Trump said, we should have nothing to do with this. Not our fight. Should have nothing to do with it. I really believe our main interest, America's main interest, is to get the Russians out of Syria. Their military base, their warm water port, it's allowing them to ferry weapons to Iran and to get weapons from Iran and to arm the Houthi rebels who are rocketing us in the Red Sea and rocketing Israel on a regular basis. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, Brian, anything like this rebellion that diminishes Russian and Iranian influence and power in the Middle East is good for the United States. It's good for Israel. It's good for our Arab friends. As you say, those bases that Russia uses in Syria are way stations for weapons going in to Yemen that are used to attack American naval ships and the freedom of commerce in the Red Sea. Syria has been used for a very long time as a transit point for fighters and for weapons going from Iran into Lebanon for Hezbollah to attack Israel. So anything that stops those things from happening is a good development for the United States, a good development for Israel. We just have to be guarded and careful about what may follow Assad. It's not necessarily going to be that much better. It could be, but it may not be.
It will be Sunni, and they'll be enemies to Iran. That's pretty clear, which will be helpful. Here's what Donald Trump said yesterday when asked about the future of NATO and America.
Do you commit that the United States will remain a member of NATO while you're in office?
Again, they have to pay their bills. If they pay their bills, absolutely.
But not if they don't pay their bills.
But NATO's taking advantage of us. If they're paying their bills, and if I think they're doing they're treating us fairly, the answer is absolutely, I'd stay with NATO.
But if not, you would consider the possibility of
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Your thoughts?
This is exactly what he said in his first term, Brian. He forced NATO members to start actually investing in our common defense, something that the United States and just a handful of other nations do. All NATO nations are supposed to spend 2% of their economy on their military. There's still many that don't, including many of the large wealthy nations in Western Europe. It's time they start investing in their military for our shared common defense.
Lastly, real quick, Pete Hegseth seems to have gotten momentum behind him. But you're in Washington. You talk to these senators. You go to lunch in the cafeteria together. So is he on track? Is he gaining momentum?
Brian, I expect a Republican Senate is going to confirm all of a Republican president-elect's nominees. I had a good meeting last week with Pete Hegseth and with Pam Bondi. I know many of these nominees. 2 Arkansans have been nominated as ambassadors: Marco Rubio, Kelly Loeffler. Doug Collins and I served together. In fact, if you go back 32 years to Bill Clinton's transition, there are only 2 nominees out of 72 cabinet secretary nominees in which senators of the president-elect's party voted against him. So no one should be surprised that a Republican Senate is going to confirm the Republican president-elect's cabinet secretaries.
All right, and don't be surprised if your new book, 7 Things You Can't Say About China, becomes a bestseller like your others. It's coming out shortly. You can pre-order it now. Thanks so much, Senator. I don't know how you had time to write it, but pretty impressive. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Brian.
You got it. Fox News Alert.